Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Right or Die Show. I am your host, Randi-lee. On today's episode, I'm going to be talking to Vic Ferrari. Welcome, Vic. So excited to have you on the show.
Hi, thank you for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity.
So start by just telling us a little bit about who you are.
My name is Vic Ferrari. I was born and raised in New York City. As a child, I wanted to become a New York City police officer. My parents did everything they could to try to get me to go to college, but all I wanted to do was become a cop and later NYPD detective. And at 21 years old, I took the police exam. I went into the New York City Police Academy, and from there, I had a wonderful 20-year career with the New York City Police Department. I worked in various units, everything from DUI. I worked in narcotics division where I bought drugs. I did undercover operations. My last 10, I was a detective in the NYPD's auto crime division where I did everything from chop shops, vehicles getting exported out of the country, changing of vehicle identification numbers. And it was a wonderful run. I had a great career. I worked on a lot of interesting cases. I retired after 20 years. And probably about 5 or 6 years ago, I got into writing. And I've written 4 funny, humorous, behind-the-scenes books about the New York City Police Department, about the characters, the interesting criminals, the people I worked with, and things that you would never expect that would go on behind the scenes in the New York City Police Department.
Very cool. Now, how did you make the leap from police to writing?
I had a lot of friends that used to tell me, you know how to tell a good story and you never seem to run out of stories. You should write this stuff down. It wasn't my motivation to do it while I was a detective with the police department. It was afterwards. And I was kind of bored. And I said, you know what, maybe I should do this. And I started framing out stories and interesting anecdotes. And before you knew it, I had enough for a book. So I got my first book out there, which is called NYPD Through the Looking Glass, Stories from Inside America's Largest Police Department. And I was nervous about putting out a police book, quite honestly, because I didn't know what the reception would be. I didn't know what the public would think. I didn't know what my peers would think. I was a little nervous. Like a lot of my cop friends would say, "Oh, you're giving away secrets, or people shouldn't have to know about that." But the response was the opposite. Everybody thought they were funny stories, and
Oh, good.
Yeah, the 2 things I never wanted to do writing was get anyone divorced or get somebody in trouble. So I stay
Those are
away
good
from
things. Yeah.
and I changed the time periods around. I changed the police stations around. I changed the ranks around. I moved people in and out of different stories. So it's not target specific where someone can say, "Hey, he's bashing me in this book." My books aren't sour grapes. They're more about the funny and ridiculous things that happen along my police career.
And you had a long police career, so probably a lot of funny and ridiculous things happened.
Yeah, quite a lot. Yeah, my new book, NYPD Law and Disorder, starts off with I'm using a public bathroom. I'm in uniform. I take off my gun belt. I hang it on the bathroom stall hook. I drop my pants. I'm getting ready for liftoff, and these screaming teenagers come bursting into the bathroom, and they're hitting the hand dryers and turning on the sinks, and they're roughhousing and beating the hell out of each other. And then it gets quiet, and I go, "All right, did they see a pair of feet underneath the stall and just decided to knock it off? Did they leave?" I said, "You know what? Even though I'm in uniform, I'm in a compromising position." I go, "Let me put my pants back on and see what's going on." Just before I do that, I look up, and what do I see but a teenager hanging over the other bathroom stall. He's standing on the toilet in the next bathroom. He's reaching over the stall trying to grab my gun belt. Well, this is the Bronx. It's a little bit rougher place. I jump up with one hand and try to pull my pants up with one hand, and I grab him around the neck with the other. So now I'm punching him lefty. I let my pants go to the floor, and now I'm wrestling with this kid trying to pull him over the bathroom wall. Well, his friends run into the other stall, and they're pulling him. So I'm in a tug of war with my pants down to the floor with a teenager on an aluminum bathroom wall. So those things aren't the sturdiest things in the world.
No.
And it started to buck and bend, and I couldn't hold on to him anymore. I let go. He flew back over the wall. They crashed into the wall. I pull my pants up. I get my gun belt back on. I run out. They're gone. I run into it actually happened in a shopping mall. I run out into the food court. There's a 300-pound porter buffing the floor with one of those buffing machines.
Yeah.
I said, "Did you see a bunch of teenagers run out of here?" He stops the buffing machine, looks up to the sky and burps and says, "No." So what was I supposed to do at that point? Call the police? I mean, I'm in uniform. I'd be the laughing stock of the Bronx at that point. So that book, NYPD Law and Disorder, opens up with embarrassing moments of things that happened to me in my career that you would never expect a cop to almost lose his gun belt using the bathroom.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. That's funny. That's very funny. So that book could catch you right from the beginning to want you to keep reading.
Yeah, that book, there's a couple other stories in there right from the beginning. I try to hook readers in. I mean, I'd like to think that my books are very funny, but I kind of go with the more explosive stories up front
Yeah.
to pull them in.
That makes sense because yeah, it definitely has drawn my attention now. I'm like watching this scene in my head all happen, and for
Oh my
whatever
God.
reason, I am picturing so where I live, there's this mall, it's called the Fairview Mall. And I don't know why, but that is the bathroom stall that I'm picturing, is that bathroom in the mall. I don't know why that's the one I picked.
That's where your mind goes to.
Yeah. So, which is weird because it's like the smallest mall out of all of them around me, but that's apparently where you're at.
Yeah, there's definitely more to that story. It's what led me into that food court. That day I pulled over a car and I locked up these. I was in uniform. I stopped a car with 3 guys in the back seat of a cab and they had 4 kilos of coke. So the story starts off with I make this great arrest and I'm on top of the world. You guys are from Canada, you get it. I'm parading around the station house with 4 kilos of coke like I won the Stanley Cup. I'm like, yeah, all my peers are coming by, they're taking photos. Yeah, I'm a big shot. And then I almost lose my gun belt and I'm in the fight of my life with my pants down to the ground. It's just kind of like
teenagers.
Yeah, with some teenagers. So, I got to kick the ass. So
life definitely has some ups and downs, that's for sure. During this long career that you've had with all the many ups and downs and everything in between, what are some ways that you kept yourself from kind of going into a deep dark place? Because a lot of time, or getting PTSD and things like that. What were things you did to unwind?
The thing is, I think cops tend to compartmentalize things. You try not to let things get to you. I mean, and things come at you fast and furious when you're a cop. It's 90% of the time you're just kind of sitting around, just driving around, going to mundane calls and this and that. And then all of a sudden it hits the fan. I always used to go, I still do go to the gym. I read. I try not to take myself or anything else for that matter too seriously. I believe I had PTSD. I mean, I was down on the ground walking around at ground zero, probably about 2 hours, about 3 hours after the planes hit. And at that time, I thought I was about 14, 15 years into my NYPD career at that point. I had thought I saw everything. And it was like, wow, I mean, this is worse than any homicide or any suicide I'd ever seen in my life. But you fight through it. I'm glad what I take out of those situations is I'm lucky I'm alive, and I don't take life for granted. And I'm very happy to be on the earth walking around, and, you just try to move on.
Yeah. So that's definitely easier said than done sometimes.
It depends on the individual, obviously. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So let's talk about that some more, because I mean, we just had the 20th anniversary of it, and I could remember I was in grade 9. And yes, I'm in Canada, but where I am in Canada is very, very close to the border into Buffalo. And I'm right by Niagara Falls. So after that happened, and I mean, like I said, I'm in grade 9. It was between periods 1 and 2 in high school. And they're just like an announcement over the PA system saying, there's been a tragedy that happened. We're going to be playing the news in the library and in the cafeteria. So if you want to go and watch, you can. If you want to go home, call your parents, come to the office, you could do that. And I remember going into the library and watching it. I'm like, oh my goodness. And then because we're close to the falls with the water generator, energy generator thing there, everybody was thinking, oh my goodness, if there's another attack, it's going to be right there and it'll shut down power on both sides of the border, because Niagara Falls does the power for both sides. And so everybody's thinking that's going to be next, and we're right there. And so it was a very crazy time. And my kid's only 15 now, so with the 20th anniversary just passing and having to explain to him why it was such a big deal, because they're like, oh, it's history. I'm like, no, it's history, but it's like still recent for many of us. Our memories are still very vivid.
Well, the world changed. The entire, think of it that way. I mean, you can tell your kids that. I mean, the entire world changed after that day.
Exactly. And nothing was the same. Like the ways to get on a plane was completely different. The way everyone looked at each other was just completely different. And it was, there's no better way to put it than, like you said, the world changed.
Sure. Wars started, wars ended, people were killed. I mean, besides 9/11, there were more plots. Right. You're right. Travel changed, right? I mean, now it used to be you got to the airport half hour before, not no more. I mean, you got to go online, take off your belt. It's like you got arrested. You're almost getting strip searched. Then they walk you through something that's taking your x-ray, or that's at least what I think they're doing.
Yeah.
So the world has changed, as a result of that.
It is. And there's this whole other generation now growing up that didn't live through that. So it's kind of weird, because I remember when I'm little and in history class, right, we're learning about World War II or whatever, and there were still people that went to war that were still alive. But because you didn't experience it, you're like, yeah, okay, you can tell me stories. And now I understand telling stories to my kid about such a tragic event that happened. It's very surreal.
Definitely. No, I agree with you.
So I'm sure that you knew like a lot of the people that were there searching through the rubble, helping out. Was there anything available for the first responders to help you guys through all of that?
Well, we got there. I mean, it was kind of all hands on deck. Again, I was down there a couple hours after the planes hit. They were handing out these paper masks that you would get at Home Depot, like if you were going to take down the popcorn ceiling at your house, which, I don't know how well they worked, but they were trying at least. The one thing I'll never forget walking around down there right after, the planes hit was you have all this asbestos-like stuff, looked like snow, was covered in everything. We're coming down Broadway. And the one thing I'll never forget is there were thousands upon thousands of pairs of women's shoes, all in this dust and in the rubble, because what happened was women that worked in the financial district in the Wall Street area, they were fleeing. They took their heels off and ran like hell. Now, I'm guessing it's not comfortable to run in heels. I've never wore heels. Okay, so they took their heels off and took off barefoot. So that's something that I will never forget. They did. They had people to talk to us, and if you wanted help, you could talk to somebody. And then, as FEMA, got their finger on the pulse of what was going on down there, they were bringing down groups of guys to talk to counselors and stuff. If, you having nightmares or things were bothering you or it had gotten too much for you. But, like I said earlier, I mean, I had 14, 15 years in, and most of the guys in my office did. It's not like we were a bunch of rookies. So, I never had nightmares over it, or, I don't get upset to talk about it. It's something unfortunate that happened along the way in my life. It's terrible. I'm not diminishing that, but I don't think it, I mean, it stays with me. I was there, but at the same time, it doesn't rule my life.
Yeah. And that's a really important concept in general. Whenever something tragic has happened, is to try very hard to not let it rule your life. Again, easier said than done, but
of course
that is something that is important. And if anybody who's listening right now is thinking, hey, there is this specific event, whether it's 9/11 or something else that happened in your life, and you're like, I feel like it's ruling my life, then that's when you need to reach out to somebody for help and try to work through it, because it doesn't need to run your life. It doesn't need to rule it. You can, I don't want to say get over it, because that's not really the right term.
Manage it.
Yeah, you can manage it. You can just kind of become part of you. It's just a part of your history.
Right, but it doesn't rule you.
Yes.
It doesn't paralyze you with fear or.
Exactly. So I know for yourself that you didn't have any specific episodes or anything like that, but do you know anybody that you worked with that really needed to kind of work through, whether it was from 9/11 or any of the other tragedies that you would have seen as a police officer?
Okay, so the New York City Police Department at any given time has 35 to 40,000 members. That's rank and file. That's not civilians that work there. Those police officers, captains, sergeants, detectives, etc. Yes, sometimes mental illness. People will go through bouts with depression, or they're either suicidal, or something's really bothering them, and they just can't get through it. It does happen. I've seen it. They work with you the best that they can. Some people just I've known people that just they couldn't hack it for a variety of things. I really don't want to go into specifics.
Okay.
It wasn't 9/11 though, but yeah, I've known people that have gone through some tough times and sought out help.
Good. And as that coworker or friend, is there anything that's specific that you would say or not say to them, or do or not do?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't bring up the obvious that they're placed on what's called modified assignment or restricted duty as a result of they're emotionally unstable right now. I mean, I wouldn't bring that up. Maybe let them, sometimes, we don't realize when you say to somebody, you don't know someone's mindset and you go, hey, how you feeling? Well, that might be the last thing they want to talk about because they're feeling lousy. They might be more interested in you. Obviously, sometimes people want to vent, but there's other times, it's you touch that nerve, So, I mean, if someone's obviously got problems, talk to them about the weather, talk to them about sports. If they want to come to you with their problem, or sometimes people will tell you something without telling you something.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It's sometimes what they don't say as much as what they do say. I'm never one of somebody. I know this about myself. If someone's going through a rough time, be it their health, legal problems, I'm not one to go, hey, how you doing? Or what's going on with this? Because I know myself, if I'm going through something, the last thing in the world is I want is a nosy neighbor poking and prodding, I'm going to be their entertainment. You know what I mean? Spilling my guts out about what I'm going through. Talk about anything else. If it's on their mind and they want to talk to you about it, they will. But I'm not one into prying.
Mm-hmm. That's great advice. And that also is like, so a lot of interviews that I do, a lot of people will just say, just be there for them. And that's exactly what you're saying, is you're literally just being there for them. You're just talking about nothing, but by doing that, you're basically saying, and like you said, they might tell you without telling you. You're telling them without telling them, I'm here for you if you need me. If you want to share, go ahead. If not, I'll just be here. I'm just here.
All right. So I worked with a guy and he would do that. It would drive me crazy. It's funny to drive you crazy, but he was the type of very nosy. And I mean, he was a good guy, but at the same time, he had to know everything. And he would ask you questions about things. I mean, even things that were going on in the police station, or he knew the answer, but he was always trying to squeeze that last drop out of you that you might know one more detail about a story. I was with him sometimes when something would happen and he'd go, what do you think about that? I'm like, well, were you there? Yeah. I says, well, what are you asking me for? You saw what happened. So what do you think? You know what I mean? He would always, oh, did you hear so-and-so's getting a divorce? Yeah, I heard. What do you think about that?
I think.
What do you want me to say? I'm not married to him. I'm not married to her. I mean, it's not right. Exactly. It's none of my business. So people like that, I'm always weary of. That that's a one-liner I put in a lot of my books. I'm always weary of strangers offering candy.
Yes, I know. I keep telling my kid. So loves animals. I love animals too. I get that. But whenever he sees a dog or a cat or whatever, he has to go over and pet it. And he knows you have to ask the owner first before you can pet the dog. But I keep telling him, you got to be careful, because some stranger one day is going to say, hey, you want to pet my dog? Like, instead of giving you candies, you want to come pet my dog and then steal ya.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
and that's been linked that a lot of people that abduct children will use candy or a pet to lure them in. Well, not only
uh-huh.
that, the animal might not be friendly and
Yeah.
bite your kid. You know, it's funny you touched that upon that. I have a 120-pound Irish Wolfhound, which is an
Oh,
unusual dog, and people come up to me all the time, and I go by the mood I'm in or the way they treat me. I've had everybody, I've had it both ways. I've had people, would you mind if my child could pet your dog? And if I'm in the mood and I'm not in a rush, sure, no problem.
yeah.
I've had people stop their car, slam on the brakes, get out with their cell phone, FaceTime somebody, and they want me to talk to some person they're FaceTiming about my dog. I'm like, do you know how ridiculous you
Wow.
look right now? You know, oh, talk to my son. He loves that breed. I'm like, you almost got into a car accident. So that, yeah, that happens to me quite a bit. That I get approached by people when I'm walking my dog, and you know, I just want to be left alone. It's almost like getting
Yeah.
a taste of what it's like to be famous. You know,
Yeah.
like just picture your favorite actor, and you know, they're in a restaurant or they're just walking with their wife or girlfriend, and someone, hey, can I get your autograph? Or hey, I loved you in this.
Yeah.
I mean, they're trying to be appreciative, but at the same time, they're being a pain in the ass.
Exactly. Yeah, I get that sometimes. So we have a lab and a beagle. Labs are common. People see them all the time. I mean, he's a handsome man. I love him. But I get people, they'll stop and like they don't quite jump out of the car, but they'll slow down and roll the window down. They'll be like, I love your beagle. I'm like, hey, thank you.
No, I've had them slam on the brake. I'm like, I thought I was getting whacked, you know?
Yeah, that's kind of that's too far.
Yeah, a little
That's too
bit.
far. But yeah, we have this route that we walk. We're walking the dogs, and it's like, okay, well, that's Sam's house, and that's Bella's house. Oh, and there's other Sam's house, and there's Penny's house, and there's Hercules. And it's like, those are all the dogs' names. I have no idea what the owners' names are, but we know all the houses based on what dogs live there. But you know, animals are cute, but as long as you're asking for permission before petting any kind of animal so that you don't get bit, and you don't know, like, what I always say to my kid too is you don't know if that dog likes strangers or what kind of mood they're in that day or whatever. Like you said, like you don't know. So even if you know the dog, like I said, we know all the dogs in the neighborhood. I always say ask them again that day, because maybe the dog just got home from the vet, so they're not in a good mood. You just don't
Yeah, I
know.
mean, I have a tight schedule, and sometimes, you know, I'm thinking to myself, okay, if I can get him walked now, I can run home, get changed, go to the gym. You know what I mean? Like I got a tight schedule, and you know, sometimes strangers pull up and they want to kind of suck the life out of you and talk to you about your pet. And it's like I
Yeah,
don't have time. I don't mean to be, you know,
yeah.
blow you off, but
No.
I'm gonna have to blow you off.
Sometimes they'll just be like, "Yeah, my dog's mean," just so that they leave me alone.
I've
And
done
my
that.
dogs are the sweetest things ever. Like the lab is actually a service dog, so he is the most chill dog. The beagle, she's not aggressive, but she's scared of everyone she doesn't know. So I mean, she kind of takes care of that by herself and will like hide behind me. But yeah, sometimes they'll just be like, "Oh no, they don't like people," just because, like I said, either you're in a rush or I'm in a bad mood or getting creepy vibes off of somebody, and I just would rather not.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You know
Um,
what you know, the subdivision I live in, that happens to me a lot. And I've always said, when you buy a pet, it's almost like you've joined a club that you don't want to be a membership of. And I don't have time. And I'm walking the dog. Oh, can my dog, you know, I got a 120-pound
yeah,
beast. Yeah, he's friendly, but other dogs aren't. And if he starts, you know, with that leash, and I don't want to get knocked over, and I mean, he's
exactly.
powerful. Yeah, it's just, I'm not in a club.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Just
exactly. And like more often than not, I'll say, yeah, okay, you can pet him or whatever. But I always tell them to leave Daphne alone, the beagle, because she doesn't like people she doesn't know. So I always tell them to leave her alone because she doesn't want that. Freddie though, the lab, he's like, as soon as you pet him once, you're his best friend forever. But yeah, more often than not, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's fine. But if they don't, like some people try to do it without asking, and I'm like, no. Um, But anyways, we should start wrapping up. I could talk about animals all day long, but where can people get a hold of your books?
All of my books are on Amazon. All my paperbacks are $10. I try to keep the price point down. They're about 240 pages each. So all my books are on Amazon, and you can go on Amazon paperback, and also $2.99 for ebook download.
Perfect. So that is super easy, and Christmas is coming up, so it makes great Christmas presents. It's your little infomercial for you.
Thank you.
And where can people follow you to see all this upcoming stuff that you're doing?
Well, my name is Vic Ferrari. I'm on Twitter at Vic Ferrari 50 on Twitter, and I also have a Vic Ferrari author Facebook page.
Perfect. And we will put those links down in the description
Thank
below. Oh, don't look at my bad nail polish. So make sure that you check out the links down below, get a hold of Vic's books, and follow him to make sure that you stay up to date on all of these very amusing stories that he shares. And thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Randy. I appreciate it.
Hit that like and subscribe button here on the channel. Share these episodes out, please. As well, if you are part of our Patreon, then there are some behind the scenes. Vic shared a hilarious story with me that I, again, could not stop laughing. So if you want to hear that story, that will be posted for the patrons. Make sure that you check it out if you want some of those behind the scenes moments. And as always, remember that the only way to end the stigma of mental health is to speak openly and honestly.